everyone. It's Martha Novak, and this is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. Welcome and happy Valentine's Day. It is the big day. We're going to talk about love today, but love in a different way than we've been talking about. So many aspects to love. We're going to try to make it even clearer today than we ever have. Several weeks ago, we finished a series on relationships. That is not what we're talking about today. So go back and listen to that. It was 2 weeks ago, but about 4 or 5 weeks prior to that was when it started. This is on the whole nature of love from the aspect of consciousness. So we're going to have some fun today, and I hope all of you are doing well. We're glad you're with us. So let's do a prayer, get us all on the same page, mainly for me to get on the same page with you, and we'll launch into this, okay? Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for everything. And now we open ourselves to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do, as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment. We ask this now with our whole hearts, as we open to the persons we all are and the energy of love that we know is there. We thank you for all of this, dear God. We say now, in all gratitude, that we know nothing, for it is the you through us and through all things that know it all, and we surrender to that for these 90 minutes and hopefully longer. And so it is. Amen. Hi, guys. So glad to see all of you all. Those of you that are on Blog Talk Radio know that I'm talking to some people on Facebook Live as well. This is televised. And they will occasionally identify themselves, and their pictures will come up, and they will occasionally have comments, which I hope you will today. We're also live today, so our call-in number is 347-850-1647. I think it would help considerably put on my glasses to actually see that. 347-850-1647. And that's how you can talk to me directly if you would like. Pardon me. We are beginning to go into spring here, even though it's still a bit chilly. And I think there are some pollens out that get me. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Audrey. Very nice to know you all. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. You might want to have pen and pencil, or pen or pencil, and a piece of paper in front of you. My job is loads of fun, but it is entailing that I translate some very complex, abstract thoughts into a workable way of doing things. The task sometimes is a little daunting when I'm talking about something that is this big a subject. So once in a while, I will have you draw out a construct that'll explain a little better, and I think that's what's coming today, because I really want you to walk away with an understanding, okay? All right. You hear me from time to time talking about Viktor Frankl and all of his books, The Doctor and the Soul, Man's Search for Meaning. And in Man's Search for Meaning, which I am rereading for, I don't know, the umpteenth time, it describes ways to discover the meaning of life. He has 3 of them. The meaning of life, he says, can change throughout life, but it never ceases to be. It's always there. The 3 ways that he says to discover the meaning of life are, number 1, by creating a work or doing a deed. Number 2, by experiencing something or encountering someone. And number 3, by the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. Now, the reason I'm starting there is today we're going to talk about number 2. Number 2, by experiencing something or encountering someone, the second point is about love. And it's about all the personal aspects of love and the transcendent ones. Hello, Sheila, and happy Valentine's Day to you, my darling. I love all the hearts. Thank you. So, we're going to talk about all those aspects of love today. Suffice it to say, it's one of the big things in life, one of the big things that will make you happy, but one that is not always what it seems. And it's certainly not necessarily what we have been taught. So let's start with a construct, and we're going to use it throughout today. It's a very simple one. I want you to draw an old-fashioned thermometer on the page. So draw a vertical line and then a lot of little lines all the way up. Now, let's say this is your nature of love. This thermometer that you're going to have me refer to, thermometer and construct, the same words for me right now. That is what you're capable of. Now let's talk about this. There are things that keep you very low on the page. If the bottom of that thermometer is the lower vibrational aspects of love, and the high one, or the highest aspects of love, we're going to talk about all of these and what that even means. There's some things that can keep you in the lower aspects of who you are. Now, for those of you that are new to me, so far I haven't seen anybody that's new, but if you are new to me, one of the things that confuses us about God, and the energy of God is love, so we're kind of talking about the same thing here. One of the things that confuses us about it is that everything is God. Everything is this energy. I'm going to explain more in a few minutes. But everything is. They're just low aspects and high aspects of everything. I mean, there are, right? We can enjoy a good book and we can share it with our friends. Oh, you should read this. This is great, you know. We can hit somebody over the head with a book that's large enough and kill them, probably. Everything has this duality in life. Everything. And God does too. We get confused because in our child's mind, we think that God is there for us in the good times, and He is not there for us in the bad times. But God has said, I mean, I don't take the Bible literally, but here we go. It is said that I am that I am. If whoever wrote that was channeling, I think that's a pretty good channel. Because you're the who of God. We all are the aspects of God that we are, right? But God is the energy. God is the that. I am that I am. And you are who you are. Now, in the lower aspects of God, there's a very fear-based experience. This is what we experienced when we were kids. Many of us carry that into our adulthood. We do carry it into our adulthood until we start challenging these things, these issues that keep us in those lower aspects. Some of those issues are our fear. In fact, there are really only two emotions in the world: fear, and all fear-based emotions, and love, and all love-based emotions. There you have it. That runs the entire gamut. And of course, our spiritual journey, our privilege is to go from the fear-based self to the love-based self. That's our journey, if we choose to accept it. Sound like Star Wars today, or was it? Star Wars? No, it was Star Trek. I knew there was a star in there somewhere. Or was it Mission Impossible? I don't know. They all say the same thing, don't they? Yeah. Okay, we're going from one to the other. Here we go. So a great deal of fear can keep us in the lower aspects of God. That's where we started off. That is the base of the ego child's mind, this fear-based experience, and the higher self, which is the love-based experience. The other thing that can keep us in these lower aspects that we talked about last week is shame. If you have a great deal of shame, it keeps you bogged down. In fact, all of our issues keep us bogged down. That's why I said anything fear-based. Now, I just wanted to put that on the table because the thermometer is about the whole thing, right? The fear-based experience of love, the higher aspects of love, and we're going to talk about everything in between. I just want you to understand these concepts real well. I found a pretty good definition of love. I've been frustrated for many years because there isn't one. Because of why? See all those little ticks that you have on your thermometer? They're all aspects of love. They're all aspects of love. So how do you define it, right? Well, I found a definition. This was on a website called Very Well Mind. I don't know about them, but I like this definition, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But their definition was, love is a set of emotions and behaviors characterized by intimacy, passion, and commitment. Well, that's lovely. I like the definition better than most because it does allow a proper definition for all those horizontal little lines that you've drawn. Gives you a place to go. In other words, love is about growth, isn't it? You can also see that thermometer as some sort of ladder. It is about growth and change, opportunity within those words. We're privileged to have the opportunity to grow deeper in love. The irony is up the scale you have drawn. As we grow, this is what happens. The vibration raises. People have said that was very popular in the 70s when I was there. But our growth becomes our wisdom, and that becomes our contribution. This is extremely important because you're not fulfilled if you're not contributing. The ego child's mind is very self-focused, and it doesn't contribute as much. The higher self mind, who you are as you move up that scale, is a great contributor based on their wisdom. All right. It's interesting because really we're talking about your potential as a human being by you learning more about love, challenging what isn't loving in you, and in that, choosing to be more and more loving and seeing all the subtle ways we're not. Because once the unsubtle ways, once the obvious ways that we're not loving are challenged, let me tell you, there have been some subtle ones, and we have to catch those too. I mentioned that several weeks ago we finished our series on relationships. So look back at the construct that I just gave you, the thermometer. Where would you think an intimate partnership with another person belongs on that vertical line? Where would you think? I'm going to tell you, if you think it would be in the middle or at the top, it's toward the bottom. Because you've got to have room to grow. And the more you know about consciousness, the more aware you are, the more you're challenging yourself. That's your growth, right? And your potential. That's very exciting when you first start a relationship, that it has places to go. Now, if you want to find out all the little things that can sabotage you so you don't go up that line, listen to the relationship series, please. That's free. It's on Blog Talk Radio and Facebook Live. Love truly is the energy of God. And those other emotions like rage and anger and closed mind, jealousy, disgust, fear, resentment, hatred, negativity. What do you think those emotions are actually made of? Well, you see, where we're all coming from is that everything is God, right? So those emotions are God too. They're just the fear-based part of the equation. So here's a revelation, and I think this is very important to know. All those things I just named are all love because everything is love, because everything is energy, and because all energy is God. Now, let's talk about how rage, anger, disgust, closed mind, negativity, disgust, fear, resentment, and hatred, how can that possibly be love? Aren't they the opposites of love, we ask ourselves? And that, I've got to say no. They're simply love that can't be itself. They are love that cannot be itself. Sorry, that sounds so abstract. I'm going to try to explain it a different way. When you were a child, in your family of origin, everything wasn't rosy, even if you think it was. Even with the best intentioned parents, a child grows up with issues because its soul needs to learn things and needs to have the experience to do so. So a lot of this is our perception of what our soul needs to learn. A simple thing like not being fed on time is life-threatening to a child before 18 months old. All time is now for a child before 18 months old. That's before the ego and the ego child's mind develop. So everything is now. So if the child experiences hunger or is wet or uncomfortable or actually in pain, it's interpreted by the child at that age that this will last forever. There is a primitive programming in every person, in every one of us, that fears that anything bad will last forever. Of course, there's another part of you, which is the higher mind or the highest mind, and this part of you knows it's not true. And yet these things exist in you as well. Sometimes things are worse in our childhoods. After all, our parents are people with their own problems, right? A parent could have rage issues or be OCD or narcissistic and a variety of other things that do influence us as we are children. So you, an adorable little bundle of undeveloped love, adapt. And so in your adaptation, here come the issues, because you see everything relative to you. If your father is a rageaholic, something must be wrong with you. Is a suspicion there, right? Okay. We have used the energy of love to adapt. Part of our adaptation is to slide the energy of love, vulnerable, loving, adorable, innocent energies that we are, to other things that protect us more. We're very sneaky about this. And this is something we do without any of this even being conscious. This is just our survival skills. All right. But Here's the thing. We aren't in that family anymore. Not really. I got real tickled a number of years ago. I was working with a man who had sailed from Europe all the way to America. That's a big deal. This was a number of years ago, too. What, 40 years ago, 50 years ago? It was an interesting journey for him. It was interesting because he was very meticulous and very, had to have everything done a certain way. And as he was standing in my kitchen getting a cup of tea, he was telling me what I should do in my kitchen. Most of you know me and are going, ooh, not good. So I challenged him and said, why are you doing that? And he said, well, you know, you can't keep a lax ship like this going if you're in the sea. You've got to listen to the captain. You've got to do everything a certain way, and everything has a certain place and everything. And I said, but you're missing the point. You're not on the sea anymore. You're not in that sailboat anymore. Time to do something else. I say that to you now. We aren't in the family home anymore. It's time to make different choices, do some other things. You are an adult and you have an adult mind, and your programming is set for consciousness, if indeed that's what you want. That means you have to be willing to think different thoughts, feel different feelings, have different experiences physically in the world, and certainly entertain more spiritually. Your life is not about survival anymore. By the way, your first 8 years are very much about survival. That child has got to survive. But you have survived. Okay? Your issues often come from adapting based on appearances. You don't have the developed mind when you're little. Everything is about us. Therefore, anything that happens, we are saying, oh, I did that. Oh, you know, that's me. I'm not enough. I'm this, I'm that. That's what we do. That's what kids do. But staying there is going to be challenged when you are trying to open consciousness on a different level. Here's another abstract principle, which I'll explain relative to all of this that we're talking about right now. Nothing can turn into itself that is not at first itself. You might say, what? Nothing can turn into itself that is not at first itself. In other words, ice starts out as water, doesn't it? And then the temperature lowers and it freezes. The temperature rises and it melts. Ice was always water, and that's why it can turn into this form again. Well, let's talk about love. Love is the same way. Everything is love. All those pesky emotions you square off against, all of them that you judge and you think are bad, try to hide from others and from yourself, are love. And as such, they can all turn into that again. This will get you on that page big time. You got to confront your emotions. You've got to realize all of this. You've got to learn more about consciousness in the bigger picture. You've got to realize that our tendency is to blame ourselves, to shame ourselves, to narrow our focus down to what's wrong, instead of accepting it all as part of a very human package. Working through our wounds and releasing the energy to the highest self is really about what spiritual surrender is about, which opens these deeper levels of consciousness. Now we are talking about having a lot of energy released from the past, all those fixations. What psychology doesn't tell you is fixations are fixations of energy. And when you resolve them, release them, what happens is a lot of energy comes into the present moment. You have a lot more energy. And you have choices to make here that you've never had before. To continue on that way, or to see clearly what you're doing and going, this is getting me nowhere, I'm going to do something else. And to have all those options available in higher consciousness that you've never seen before, because the ego child's mind can't see all the choices. It's too threatening. The ego child's mind is there for one reason, and that is to interpret your world and keep you in a little box so you will stay alive. It doesn't care if you're happy. Your highest self is the thing that's calling you and saying, happiness is here. Let's go and search for it. I'm sorry, you're hearing cats and you're hearing dogs today. It's very exciting. Squirrels, all sorts of things are on the porch. All right. All right. Thank you, Michael. My husband is great about calling them down. Okay. Now, I used the term earlier, undeveloped love. Let's talk about that for a minute. A child is just love. It is our privilege and our challenge to find out what developed love is when we get to be an adult. And this is the love that we sometimes call that unconditional love. And it's certainly at the top of the thermometer, right? The highest place you can go. I personally dislike the phrase unconditional love. I don't like it at all. It's bandied about by people who absolutely do not know what that is and how all this works. So, no one loves unconditionally until they do. But and here's the thing, and if this is confusing you, I'm going to answer this question, but here it is. Okay, so let's say I'm going to achieve unconditional love, and your husband has a mental aberration and comes home and beats the hell out of you. You'd be a fool to love unconditionally. That's called fantasy. You should get the hell out of there. Okay? So let's put all this in perspective now about what we are talking about. We are all, as human beings, on the path to accepting unconditional love in us. That's nice. Still yet, because we go from one horizontal line that you made on that construct to another, and back and forth again, nothing is in a permanent state. I can say I love my husband unconditionally, but really, honestly, that doesn't mean anything. You let him yell at me over a misunderstanding we have yet to resolve, and you're not going to see me so unconditionally loving. But does that deny that unconditional love exists in me at other times? No. And what consciousness work does is it helps you live in those more those higher states. However, we're human beings. So everything is appropriate to the person and the situation and what's going on. We don't want to take away your ability to be angry. There are times that it's spiritual to be angry, to understand what's going on, to get that out of you. It could be trapped love from your past. And to go on and live in a more loving and generous manner. You are that thermometer that you have on that page. And you play up and down that construct at different times, in different circumstances, and with different people. Why shouldn't you enjoy all aspects of what you are? Of course, you should enjoy your partner through so many ways, through care, through closeness, through attraction, affection, and trust. Oh yeah, all of those and more are part of a relationship like that. But what of the vertical line that goes beyond partnership and is a representation of who you really are as love? And what your potential as love really is. Wow. I've said all along that, we as human beings run around when we're younger and sometimes when we're older, and we try to get somebody to love us. Whoa. That's never going to work out. Because what it shows is that we are not solid in us. And we're going to talk about that more in just a minute. I think there's only one reason to have a partner, and that is that you have developed yourself to be love, and the natural thing is then to give it to someone else and to create that loop where you give, you receive, you give, you receive. That's what love really is in a partnership sense. Love is all we are. It behooves us to work on ourselves, to unearth the unlovingness in us, whatever you want to call that, by the way, rage, anger, jealousy, negativity, you heard the list. Hello, John. One of the advantages of a good partnership is that it will confront you to unearth these things that you have learned not to let be fully love. You can then, once they are unearthed and you have a good look at them, you can decide once and for all, are you going to keep living that way? Are you going to grow within yourself and change these adaptations back into love? You do and will have that choice. Sometimes when you're very stuck in the ego child's mind, it doesn't seem like you have a choice, but you remember no solutions are there. The argument's there. The solutions come when you're ready to say, okay, what else is there other than what I think is right? My perception, which really are indications that we're still in the ego child's mind if we're holding on to those. And if we're willing to look beyond, that's when the solutions come. So many people think that having a romantic partner will solve everything. These are the people who are usually, number one, in fantasy. Fantasy is its own reward. I know people that just love to be in love, but nothing ever lasts. It doesn't last because, number two, they don't have a solid sense of who they are. It's changeable with the wind. They don't know what their values are. They don't know who they are. They don't hold them. They don't bring them to every experience and every conversation, and by the way, every disagreement. And number three, these people probably don't know how to work through any of these problems. That's why they can't make anything last. You understand? How is this relationship going to work? First of all, reality always smashes against fantasy, and the fantasist will always be hurt more than if they have lived in reality. Second of all, if one doesn't have a solid sense of self, you're far too vulnerable for outside influences. Therefore, there is no solid sense of self as who you are and where you're coming from. If you're all smoke and mirrors and people-pleasing, who is there inside to fall in love with? We can't see you. We don't know who you really are. If like attracts like, you can't find someone like that. You're just attracting more insecure people because that's who you are. You're not presenting yourself as who you are. And illusions are not going to last. You see? Hello, sweetie. Good to see you, Lisa. And about number 3. Number 3 was, this is someone probably who cannot work through their problems. You've got to do the work on yourself. You've got to find who you are inside in your authenticity. And 2, you got to learn to work through your problems. Life is a learning process. You're going to be arguing about the same things 50 years from now. It won't be a very good marriage. You will have 3 choices. You will either need to divorce, you'll sweep it under the rug and be miserable and keep on the way you are, or number 3, you can look at all this and fix it. And I suggest the latter. Many people with shame don't learn. Let's talk about that. Instead of learning what to do, they go through a door that was created in their childhoods, and that door, welcome to that room, is shame. They'll shame themselves instead of looking at the situation realistically. If you are shaming yourself instead of learning what's going on so it doesn't happen again, there are 2 different uses of your energy. Here's your energy. You are putting it there, or you are putting it here. You are putting it one place or the other. My suggestion is that you confront your shame. Now, I have a lot of information about this in all my radio shows. Okay? We even did a show specifically for shame, I believe in the last 2 weeks, or was it just in the last week? Anyway, a lot of my shows address this. So go back and listen to some of them. The next time you feel yourself wanting to go through the door of shame, reminds me of the bog of stench, wasn't that in Princess Bride? Stop and assess the situation. Oh, no, you can't do that. I have a little cat that thinks these doors are wonderful, and once a day he comes up and tries to get in my closet. Okay. There's several things to ask yourself. What was your responsibility and what was theirs? Many times, well-intentioned people who are still in the ego child's mind, in order to control, take on too much responsibility for the other person. Why do they need to control? Because you're working from the fear-based self. You need to confront that if you recognize this you, because there are certain things that are our responsibility and certain things that are another. I have a dear client, and we were talking about this the other day, and she reminded me of a story that happened, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago to her. She was in Delhi, and somebody broke in line, and she spoke up that she was next because she thought, and she was very nice about it, she thought that the woman that broke in line just didn't see her, right? And this woman turned around and lambasted her. And my friend, all this time, has been going, what did I do wrong? Okay, what did I do wrong? Keeps her from going. That woman had some serious problems that day. Maybe chronically, but she doesn't know that, but serious problems that day. That was not her. That was this other woman. Maybe she was just a lousy person. But all this time, my friend's been carrying that on our back for one reason. She went through the door of shame instead of seeing things realistically. Sometimes it really is about somebody else that's just off the wall. Now, do understand, If you have some control issues, which this person did, one of the reasons she's carrying that around is she didn't want to do that again. So the only logical explanation she can find is to blame herself, to figure out what she did so she won't do that again, so she'll be safe and she can control her environment and somebody won't come along and yell at her again. Guys, this is crazy. Sometimes a bitch is just a bitch, right? I know, I've been one from time to time, okay? Guys, come on. You have to see things realistically. You have to realize what your role is and what somebody else's role is. You have to think it through in a larger arena. Let me tell you, consciousness is about seeing 360 degrees around a situation. And what my friend did was nabbed this and ran with it. It's her fault. What about that? It's not about the childhood, guys. You see? Okay. Look, here's a premise I hope you come from. It's certainly where I'm coming from. Love is all we are. It behooves us to work on ourselves and unearth some of this so we can release that energy to come back in present time where we have choices, where we live more dynamically, and where we are more in the energy of love. There you go. That's what it's all about. Another way of looking at a situation not only is what's your responsibility and what's theirs, but without all the emotion involved, what really happened? What's just the bottom line facts? Take the emotion out of it for a minute. That's what's confusing you. And a lot of people are very dramatic people, and man, drama confuses you. Listen, nothing happened in any situation but the facts. All right? The facts are, let's make something up, rear-ended the car in front of me. That's the fact. I wasn't watching. I turned the radio off or something and rear-ended the car in front of me. Okay, that's the fact. Is it a fact that you are so messed up that you mess up your life and it's just horrible and, oh my God, you're the stupidest person in the world and not responsible enough to drive a car? See, all that's crazy stuff. Go back to what I taught you all in a previous lesson, long time ago. There is a primary set of emotions. There is a secondary set of emotions. Secondary set of emotions is all from the egoic child's mind. They're going to lead you down the path of lower vibrational energy. It's not who you are. Look, if I rear-ended a car because I was turning on or off the radio, I'd feel bad. Okay, I'd feel bad. I'd be upset in the moment that I was unconscious and hit this other car. I'd feel concerned for them. I'd be concerned for me. I'd be concerned for my husband and my finances because we're going to have to fix the car. I'm sure we have insurance that would cover this, but do we want to call them if it's not bad enough? I mean, there are a lot of things to deal with right there. I don't need to condemn myself. You see, and people do. They run to the secondary and they condemn themselves, and this is self-attack. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if we want to live in love, you better start learning how to treat yourself better. That's where it all starts. And the secondary emotions are never loving. They're self-attacking. They're self-loathing. Don't go there. Catch them and stay with the primary. The facts. Just stick with the facts. The facts are truth. The emotions, if they're from your childhood, need to be challenged. They're most often lies you tell yourself. Thank you, John. I'm so glad. Thank you. Certainly, I believe if you've actually done something to apologize for, then by all means apologize. But if on consideration of the 360 degree viewpoint, you haven't done anything. Don't throw through that old door to control and to placate and to people please, to make yourself look better, to collect evidence about those mean old people out there or against this bad old self, you. Oh, we've got to stop all that. It's not helping us. It is a retelling of the story that we created in our childhoods, believe it or not. And to grow, we're going to have to stop telling that story. This dropping of your story happens near, not all the way at the top of the thermometer, but as you're going to the top of the thermometer, because everybody tells their story. Guys, nobody remembers their stories accurately. You may think you do, but that's not true. It's all myth and lies, and we can't stay there. So what replaces your story is a full and loving commitment to this moment right now. This is Lamster, by the way. He's one of my kitties. Is a deliberate commitment, a deliberate choice to this moment right now. And that's what happens the more you release these things from the past. That's where the energy comes from. So you can stay in this moment and make it a good one. You see, this is how you realize now, wait a minute, I'm responsible for my life. This is a creative moment, and you are not going to do a sneak up attack on my closet door. Oh, okay. I think you all are getting it. Let's expand our idea of what love is, too. You, on these radio shows, are hearing me tell you the truth as I see it, because truth is relative, isn't it? Now, outside of the radio shows and outside sessions, if you are a client of mine, as a friend, I'll support you, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut a lot of the times. I will tell you, I can see how you'd feel that way. I'll support you. But particularly in a session with me, when it is all about you and we've got somewhere in agreement that we have to go together, because you wouldn't call me if you weren't in agreement that we have to go there. We can't leave you in delusion. So I'm going to tell you absolutely what I'm seeing. Now, here it is. Do I do that maliciously? Those of you that are listening to me, I hope you will realize that it's never malicious. But we're so afraid that somebody's going to hurt us. But guys, you've got to face the truth of exactly what you're doing from some sort of loving person so that you can go, I get it. I get it. I see what I'm doing. I get it. And saying, thank you for telling me. Thank you. I get it now. Thank you. And that takes a certain amount of emotional maturity, doesn't it? It does. And you can do that. One of the most powerful things you'll learn on this journey is this. The more you free yourself into the higher and more loving energies, true compassion, if you're writing this, capitalize those things. because they come from the highest self. True compassion is a part of your lovingness. And it will first happen for you, and then it will happen for others. In really loving yourself and forgiving yourself and seeing yourself and coming from your authentic nature and seeing who you really are. You see, one of the reasons we don't see who we really are is because we're focused on those little aspects of us we don't like, instead of seeing, hey, is that all you are? I'll guarantee you that's not all you are. But that's what we think we are. And it's because we're not looking at everything we are. We're much bigger and better than that. That's just part of our humanness. It needs to be dealt with, absolutely. That's just a tiny little aspect of who we are as love. We like to think in our ego child's mind we're compassionate, but I'm going to tell you it's more of a fantasy. It's more of a fantasy than a reality. There is a true compassion which is part of you as a loving being. And as you surrender the energy of the issues to the ascended God you are, it comes forth. Suddenly, you do feel for everyone. But you're separate too because of the whole thermometer. Now, let's talk. Because when I get to this point, here's what people say to me. Oh, you're describing me. I'm too sensitive. That, my dear, is the ego child's mind. That tells you you are in the ego child's mind. And you're focusing on your vulnerability, as it is understood by the ego child's mind, because there's a big vulnerability that is the report of all life. Isn't that something? You see, there's an understanding in the ego child's mind, quite a different experience in the highest self, not just a definition, an experience from the highest self. Okay, you are driving me totally blooming bonkers. Thank you. I ought to spray that with lavender oil or something. Here, come here. I want to show people the troublemaker you are. Are you going to come up here? Come here. As soon as I try to get him, he says, no, you may not. Okay, I was going to hold him up as the culprit so you could see him. Thank you, John. All right, so here he comes back. No, he's not stopping. Come here. Come here. All right. All right, now let's go back to work. Hear what I'm saying here, especially if you're one of those people that say, I feel too much. What you're not doing is accepting that whole thing as who you are. You're not accepting the higher energies because that's where spiritual detachment occurs. Spiritual detachment. People are confused about what spiritual detachment means. Spiritual detachment is not feeling for people. This is the confusion. Sounds like you just cut that off and you don't feel for humanity. You're above it all, right? I'll forget that. No. Spiritual detachment means that while you feel and empathize and sympathize in the egoic child's mind, you also know that the energy of God is love, and that is what's working in the world, and that's what's working in people's lives, and every single person walking the earth is creating choices for themselves. And some people aren't able to do that because of their circumstances. And we have to realize that God's perfection, not the perfection that you understand in the ego child's mind, but the perfection that really is as love, as people having soul purposes, as them working all of that out, is there. So it is in the acceptance of you as the whole thing. Circle that thing. That's you. You're all of that. Hi, sweetheart. You want to come up and say hey? All right. This is Tuffle. He's the one that you hear barking from time to time. He's a good dog. There's the advantage of, I love my house, but it is an open floor plan. And so you hear everything that goes on here. Okay. You're all of this. What has misled you is you've circled a few of these things to focus on instead of accepting all of you. The light, the dark, the good, the bad, the lovingness, the unlovingness, all of it is you. All of it is me. It's all us. The human experience is extremely important. We can't even bring in the spiritual dimension without the human experience. I go back to the Trinity that we all hear about. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Do you realize what that is? The Father is everything outside of you. The Holy Ghost, I should say, is everything outside of you that is God. Nature, the tree, the dog that I just held up, the flowers in the yard, the flowers in my windowsill, this desk, this computer, all the technology, the cat that was at the door itself, all moving molecules. All God, all living in a way in the energy of what it is. Everybody following me? But what we do is we'll just concentrate on a little bit instead of accepting the whole. So what is the whole? So there is everything that we're not. Holy Ghost. What's the Father? The Father is you as the aspect of God that you are. In highs and lows degrees. It's all inside. That's you. And what unites these two things? The human experience. Jesus held that place for you, no matter what your experience is. This is an energetic system. Jesus held that place for you, but it's not about Jesus. With all due respect, it's about, are you going to take your place in that experience? As a human being, you are. John, darling, I'm not sure I understand what you're writing me with my seemed. Would you mind explaining that so I'll understand it a little more, John? And certainly I would love to address whatever you have. Okay. Okay. That whole thermometer, that big thing, is you. It's you that has always been. It's your perception that focuses on an aspect of this or that. This whole thing is nothing but love. And we're in the process of confronting and putting to rest anything that is trapped, any kind of trapped love. That's what we do when you discover your issues and try to work through them. So you can be this marvelous whole experience, the whole thing as you. This is the developed love that we talked about. We talked about the child coming into the world being undeveloped love. that circle that you've just drawn about this whole thermometer, that's the developed love. And that's who you really are. While you feel for others, there is also a spiritual element to everything that happens. This is the spiritual detachment. I think the detachment is a weird word, but nevertheless, while it's weird and could lead you astray, it's also an accurate word, because what it does is it detaches you from the lower energies to a certain extent. You will never not feel for people. That's part of your human existence. But that you also know, absolutely know, that God is there and present. And that everything in its imperfection is indeed perfect because of the energy of God. That's the wonderful gift out of this. That's what you need to know. If you know that, why do we need to argue? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. The world's working out the way it's supposed to work out. Even if it doesn't look like it. You know why? Because the energy of God is here. We would have blown ourselves up a long time ago if the energy of God was not love. It is. Now, in this article that I had found, and I didn't quote from very much, but The Very Well Mind, it's an article by Kendra Cherry called What is Love? The other thing that I liked about it, not just the definition of love, was how to practice love. I thought we'd close with that because I thought these were pretty good, with rare exception. At one point, she says, to show unconditional love. I scratched through that one. I hope I've explained myself well enough. It's not practicing unconditional love. As a matter of fact, the more you strive for it and practice anything to do with consciousness, the more you're in your own way. We don't want to do that. All right. But she does have some things, and I've added to them, of course, to put my 2 cents worth in, that I think are really important to keep in mind. Number one, you've got to learn to be vulnerable. Now, the ego child's mind thinks vulnerability equates with being hurt, being stepped on, being a victim. All right. That's vulnerability in the ego child's mind. However, there's a vulnerability in the highest self mind, and that is with trusted others, that you are yourself, that you are yourself, that you don't have to put on, you don't have to look good in any old ways, you don't have to, you can just be you, saying what you feel, knowing how to present things so that you are not a threat. That's important to learn. A lot of people that study with me say, I should know these things. Nobody should know these things, guys. Your parents didn't say, here's how to present information so so that people won't feel threatened. Really? Any parent talks to their kids that way? Come on. That's up for a coach to do, and that's for you to learn in your adulthood. Okay. Nevertheless, what she says in How to Practice Love is be willing to be vulnerable. Yes, willingness comes first, and second of all, how do you do it? How do you do it in an emotionally mature manner? Those are things one must learn, and one does learn from books and certainly from confronting your issues. Hey, Kat. Oh, thank you, sweetheart, for saying that. Number 2, she says, be willing to forgive. Oh, yeah. You know, what this comes down to, basically, this forgiveness thing, is who you are as love. The ego child's mind says, I can only love if somebody is lovable and treats me well. They say, I can only love if somebody's a nice person. If somebody does, listen to this one. If somebody does everything that I think they should. Okay. Let me tell you, If you're going to really be using the love that you are in the higher vibrations, love is more important than being right. Love is more important than anything. But you've got to grow to that point, because if you think you can do that just like that without any work, that's fantasy, guys. But you have to be willing to forgive. I did something with my advanced class. They've been with me for 20 years. And I challenged them about, I want to say it was about a year ago. I gave them a test. This was a test about whether they were forgiving or not. I don't think that I told them what the test was about. Not one person passed that test. Guys, it is about absolutely confronting it. Sure enough, we did. We went for it. Okay? But you can't put a lid on it and say, I'm done with that. Be willing to be unforgiving until you're forgiving. And you'll be forgiving when you know more, when consciousness and when lovingness is you, without a doubt. Not just a mental thought, not just a hit or miss proposition in our emotional bodies. Her third point is do your best and be willing to apologize when you make mistakes. You know, do your best. Do your best. But don't be perfect. Nobody likes anybody who's perfect. You're the only one that thinks that's important. And there is no perfection. These are benchmarks that we create in our own mind to make ourselves miserable and keep shaming ourselves. It's all a big deception on your part. Don't do that. There is no perfection. Here's where the perfection is. It's in the imperfection. And you're accepting yourself as a whole human being. Because the perfection is God's, not yours. System is perfect. So this whole thing about we need to be perfect, we need to be right. We have to stop needing to be right. That's destroyed more marriages than anything I can think of. That and fantasy, expectations. They need to be confronted. I think another thing, this is not on this list, but it's extremely important to see the other person for who they are. And see, of course, the first thing you need to see is who you are. Really important. There are people that see what they want to see of you, and you, in turn, can see what you want to see of them. We can be in love with somebody's potential when they have no intention of reaching it. All of this is fantasy. All of this reveals a fear that you're not going to be loved and you'll take anybody and you'll make them what you cannot allow things just to be what they are, who they are. Very important. Okay, and that's insulting, isn't it, when you're putting something on someone? Because I think one of the marvelous aspects of a real love is being with someone, seeing who they really are, and choosing to be there. I think that's beautiful. I hope that happens to you, whether you have a partnership or don't. Another thing she says is to let them know you care. There is an attachment style. You can read about attachment styles all over the internet. It's not my system, but I think it's a very good one. There's an attachment style called dismissive avoidant. These are people that don't look like they care. and like that. They don't want to be hurt, so they have a shield up for whatever reason. And they are a dismissive avoidance style. You can't have any of these insecure attachment styles and have a good relationship with somebody. So do read about them. We've done shows on that too. Thank you, Lisa. The next point was listen to what they have to say. Yeah, absolutely. We need to really listen. We need to let somebody finish the sentence. Years ago, I had a client that was the head of a very big department in a sophisticated Fortune 1000 firm, right? And when I interviewed her department, which she wanted me to do to get kind of a climate reading, Michael, we can hear that. Michael, thank you. I'm sorry, my husband is talking to Vienna right now. Thank you. So what happened was when I did this climate study on her is that people in her department said she never listened. But she was listening. But she was doing something rather unfortunate. You see, the nonverbal language is not body language. There's something that makes the body work the way it does. And that is, here we are, energy. She learned that she could be safe in her childhood if she figured out problems. Her dad liked that a lot. So what she did, let me see if I can demonstrate this maybe without my glasses on, is as soon as somebody approached her with a problem, you can see my energy is on you right now, but as soon as somebody approached her with a problem, she'd do this. This is an above the body position, about 6 inches above the body. And what you do there is 5 things. I won't go into that now. I'll do that another show. But one of the things is analyzing, figuring out problems there. So half the people thought she wasn't listening. Half the people thought she was judging them because, by the way, this is where we judge as well. When all she was trying to do was figure out the problem. Just get me to the solution. She was the boss. She had to get to the solution. Instead of sitting there with her energy on the other person and really listening to them and what they said until the period came in the sentence. I think that is so important. I think that's something that we can easily forget. You see, if we are more involved with us than we are with the other person, if we love what we're doing more than the other person, we're going to cut them off. We're going to get to the solution. We're just going to say what we think. It's about us, not about them, not about us as a team. We can't do that. If we're going to love somebody, we have to really listen to what they say and not take the conversation somewhere else that we want to take it, right? Good. The next point, she says, is prioritize spending time with the other person. I think that's really true. I think a lot of times we don't have enough time. And if I fault on anything here, it is that one, because I'm a writer and I'm trying to do some things in addition to my radio shows and my session work. And certainly I can't tell you how important that is, but my husband is so wonderful. He will tell me outright, I miss you. And I'll try to make some time to do that. We're having a wonderful day today with each other. Valentines Day. Something nice and quiet, but lovely. Another thing she says is practicing love is to reciprocate loving gestures and acts of kindness. I think so too. But here's my point in consciousness. You can really connect with someone else, which is in the higher energies, or you can attach. Attachment comes when you want something from someone else. It isn't that you want something from someone else right now. You may be insecure enough to want something from someone else sometime in the future if you ever run into trouble. But that's not open. That's not honest. That's not being generous. Real generosity is doing something for someone with no thought of return. This is schnitzel, everybody. Cattail going by. All right. In the higher energies that we're talking about, the more you go up the thermometer, you'll find yourself doing for people with no thought of return. Now, this isn't self-sacrificial, by the way. Many times, self-sacrifice is an issue. Why? Because deep down inside, you really are trying to manipulate the situation, control the situation. Nope. It's just a kindness. I have the energy. I have a resource that you might need. Let's give it to you right now. That's it. Another point of hers is to recognize and acknowledge someone's good qualities. I think that goes back to you make sure you see them and not what you want them to be. That's not very nice. It just isn't. We want to see people as they really are. She goes on to say, share things about yourself. And I do think that's important. But you've got to know, you've got to have added to your mix of who you are discernment. Discernment. I've known some very dear people in my time whose boundaries have been so crossed in their childhood and they've never done any work on themselves to find what they are. And so they're just open books and they get hurt all the time. They share way too much. They say things they shouldn't to other people that they don't know and shouldn't trust. Everyone in life should have some trusted others around them that they can be fully themselves with. If you don't have that yet, work on yourself and let's start having some people around you that will then be drawn into your sphere. Okay? That's real important. The next point is to show affection. I think showing affection is a really good point. Certainly being appropriate in this day and age where everybody is so sensitive to this. But let me tell you, I work and love you. One of the reasons I work the way I do is I want you to have a good life. And I think it's really important to show affection. I have decided a long time ago, because I happen to believe that life is relatively short in this world, no matter how long we really have here, that I'm going to say what I think. So if I'm in a grocery store and I see something to admire that somebody's wearing or somebody is doing, I'll say it, by gosh. Why not? Okay. I think showing affection is not just showing affection for our loved ones, although that is very important. But it's showing affection for all of life. The people, the animals, beautiful aspects of nature, someone's talent. Someone's family. All important. Guys, thank you so much for listening today. We're ending a little early, but that's all right. I want you all to go and have a lovely day. See, it isn't about whether we're partnered or not. It is about love. And love is a lot more than the aspect of partnership, although that's a lovely one. I'm here to tell you it's a lovely one. But it's about love. Everywhere you look, you can see it with love. It's part of a perfect system. Thank you too, darling. Let's do a prayer, okay? God, thank you so much for all of us that are here today listening to the show. Open us to the next level of who we are. Let us know that nothing's wrong with who we are. We're just not seeing the whole picture. Show us the whole picture. And that we are loving and so much more than we've ever even thought of. We are the energy of you, dear God. And we open to that now fully. That we may be more loving people in our lives, more discerning people in our lives. Smarter, deeper, better than ever before. Because it's our growth. And because it's our privilege. We thank you so much for all of this, and we say this prayer now for each and every person listening to this show. We say this in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of everybody here. We thank you so much. So it is. Amen. Guys, I want to thank you with all my heart for getting the word around about these shows, that you are sending these shows out to your mailing list is really increasing our listenership, and thank you so much for doing so. I am delighted to continue to do these shows. They're all free. They're archived on Blog Talk Radio and Facebook Live and YouTube. And it's marvelous that you guys in this very complicated world with so much on the internet right now are pointing people in the direction of our show. It means a lot. So thank you so much. Our conscious community is growing, and it is because of you. Thank you. Guys, happy Valentine's Day. You're certainly my Valentines, okay? You have a good one, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day in grace and in love. Take care. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.